So today we are going to be looking at how to go about deploying FastAPI to Google Cloud Platform. In fact, you can follow similar set of instructions in order to even deploy to other cloud platforms or even DigitalOcean for that matter. So this is a brief overview of the steps we'd be taking in this tutorial. Firstly, we'd be installing a very simple FastAPI application on our local machine. Then we're going to be Dockerizing it. Then we are going to look at how we can set up a Ubuntu virtual machine on Google Cloud, right? And then we're going to look at how to set up SSH keys so that we can access our server in the cloud. And then the next step would be deploying the application from our local machine to the server. And finally, we are going to end with how we can set up a CI/CD pipeline, a very basic CI/CD pipeline, so that whenever you push the code to GitHub, the application gets deployed. So let's jump right into it. Firstly, we are going to install FastAPI locally, and for that we're going to look at FastAPI's documentation. All we need to do is we need to set up a virtual environment, which I'll be showing you how we could go about doing that in VS Code. And then we need to install FastAPI. Then we write one simple small file and we'd have a very basic API ready. So this is VS Code. Let's look at how we can go about creating a virtual environment here. So you can just go to help, show all commands, and then this shows up right at the top from because I've used it recently, or you could just search for it, Python create environment, and we are going to choose venv here, and then the version of Python I'm going to go with is 3.12. You could go with a different, and once that's done, VS Code just sets up a virtual environment for us. So let's just restart the terminal. Once you restart the terminal, you should see right before your name or your machine's name, whatever it's called, you're going to be seeing a .venv in braces, which means our virtual environment is currently active. So let's go about installing FastAPI. I'm just going to copy this command here. Once that's installed, let's go ahead and create a main.py file. And we are just going to be copying this code, right? And then let's test it out locally if this runs. So as we can see here, our application should be running on port 8000, right? So we're just going to go to docs here. So in case you're not aware, FastAPI exposes an OpenAPI based docs right here, right? So let's see if it runs. Let's just try it out, execute, and yes, here we see hello world. And as you see, we in this very simple application, we have two endpoints. One is a simple get API endpoint, and then another one with an item ID. So we just tried this out and it successfully shows us hello world. This means it's running locally. Now, next up, let's look at how we can go about Dockerizing this. So why we need to Dockerize this is Docker packages this entire application for us, including its dependencies, so that it becomes super simple for us to be able to deploy to any kind of server, right? So we're going to be creating two files here, and one would be a Docker file, another would be a Docker compose.yaml file. So our Docker file is where we'll be specifying how to set up the container, and we use Docker compose to manage those containers. So let's just fill out our Docker file. Let me just walk you through what this Docker file does. Firstly, we use a Python 3.12 image, which is like we discussed, which is what we've been using locally, right? And then within the container, we are going to create a working directory called code, and we're going to set the container to execute whatever follows within this, right? And then we are going to be creating a requirements.txt file, which I'll be showing you in a while, and we're going to be copying it here. Then we'd be install. So our requirements.txt will contain all the dependencies for this project, which is just FastAPI for now. Then next up we'd be within the container, the contents of the requirements.txt will get installed right there, right? And this is just to copy. This command just copies all of your source code to a folder called app within code.